Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 6 of What If Naruto Was a Blue Eye Elite Uchiha, guys. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual. Share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and also go ahead and check out the brand new series over on Anime King 3 of What If Naruto Was Neglected and Had Jashin sealed within him. And enjoy that, guys. And also post a new series over Anime King 2 as well of What If Naruto Was Neglected and Lost Everything. So go ahead and check out that as well, guys. And remember, if you're new, to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all for your help and your support. And yeah, without further ado, what do you say we begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last spot we left off, as Minato was thinking about Naruto, about the first time he placed doubt into their friend's mind, as Naruto was currently on a mission with Yuji and also Yamato. The both of them had made their way, as they were in the nightclub, as Naruto went to the bathroom to get information from his contact in Kumo, which was none other than Yuji, the two-tailed Nibe. The both of them wanted to see the war come to an end, so the both of them started to work together. After all, she was a big help, saving him from the Raikage back a few years. Back then, Naruto could not take him. Well, he couldn't take him back then. Now was a different story. Outside, Yamato and Yuji was attacked by Killer Bee and his man, as Minato had killed the sister of one of the Yakuzas, and the man wanted revenge. So they allowed Killer Bee to kill Yuji and Yamato, despite this is supposed to be not a fighting club, as they told Killer Bee to not touch Blue at all. Orochimaru had her high ranks already, so she was able to get Blue not touched by any of the Yakuza. But that wasn't the main reason, as they should know. Well, they will soon come to find out. As Naruto finished his talk with Yuji and she left, he broke through the door, making his way as another ability of his Sharingan was shown. Naruto could create a copy of himself, a perfect copy, so if he died, his copy would go on. It was like him just projecting himself. As far as he could see, he could create a new copy there. And it was like him, no matter if he died. And it could not extinguish until it grew old and die. It was like a real human being. This was taxing on his Mangekyo though, but he hadn't used it so much. He just used it one time to find out about it. When Naruto came out, as he saw Yamato had rushed off to face off the entire army of Kumo ninjas that tried to pin him down, as he had to get space so he can use his Mokiton. Yuji got sliced. Naruto lost it as she saw her friend transform. Scales and a tongue came from his mouth that looked like a reptile. His eyes changed. His demeanor turned cold. Fire was licking off of his body. He teared through their ranks as he placed his ability over their mind. Most of them wanted to end their life. They pee themselves. They crap themselves in fear as he ran through the army. Killer Bee stood no chance. He tried to access the Hatsubi chakra, but Naruto beat the living crap out of him. Yuji came back as she was in her full Nibe form, pleading with Naruto to stop as she stood over Bee, as she hoped she didn't have to fight him, as Naruto's body was surrounded in flames. He pulled out his cylinder as he fired off, killing the two Yakuza who had came back. Now it was over. Minato made his way to the party after that, as he heard that Naruto would be there. Arriving at the party, Kakashi told Naruto that Minato was here. He tried to convince Naruto that he was also on his side, but Naruto told him to save it. As Minato put on a show out there as everyone is happy to see him, he held on to Kushina tight for a purpose. As Naruto said that he was leaving, Minato acted like he was a bit sad. Kushina asked Naruto if she would see him again. That made Minato frown, but he quickly wiped it away. As Naruto did not answer, he simply went out and leaped over a gate. He was hungry as he headed off. So yeah guys, it was basically last left off. You guys can switch across the players and check out for yourself. So this to begin this new episode. Drowning is the worst way to die. Suffocating for air as you flare your arms around, but nothing's working, as you fall deep, deep within the abyss. Since the end of the third Great Shinobi War, Blue always falls asleep, but in his dreams he died 1,000 deaths as he drowned into the hot waters of his nightmare. As he would drop from a great height, the moon was pale, the sky was dark. He would smash head first, hitting into the water, but that wasn't how he would die. His wrists, his ankles, they were bound, tied up so he couldn't escape, as he was being submerged into water, as he was drowning, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. And it was something he could never get used to. Minato was right, he knew no fear, but what he saw in his dreams, it was pain. As he cried out as bubbles escaped his mouth, as more water filled into his lungs, death reached down and grabbed onto his very soul and started to yank it away. No matter what he did, there was no escaping it. He was drowning, he was dying. He looked up as he saw a figure standing. The person seemed far away, like they were standing on a cliff, looking down at him in the water, drowning. Bubbles burst from his mouth and nose as the life was slowly being sucked away from him. Even in his dream, he was aware of his surroundings, as he could feel it. Someone is sitting on me. He didn't lash out like the last time what he did with Itachi, when Itachi came to wake him, because he knew exactly who was sitting on him. He cracked open his eyes and his vision adjusted to the dim lighting of the room. Moonlight was pouring in. As he looked at the person, her black, painted fingernails was rested on his white t-shirt. The person was wearing a dark purple hoodie with 2 cat ears at the top of it. It didn't look too tight and didn't look too loose either. It looked like it was custom made. Another thing, the person was wearing a cat-like mask. The Envu cat-like mask. Her light brown eyes looking down into his blue orbs as he opened them fully. Her right hand reached up as she removed her mask gently, as she slowly placed it on his face. She leaned back as she sat directly on his waist, without a hint of shame. He was wearing grey sweatpants so he could feel his best friend behind completely. He folded his arms behind his head, not taking off the mask she put on his face, as he smirked underneath. "Aren't you too old to be doing this, Yuji?" he asked. She hummed quietly as she slid her arms from his chest to his abdomen. "I can never be too old to play with my brother," she said, as cool breeze rushed inside. She glanced towards the window. "You left the window open for me," she said. "I did," said Blue. "I also powered down my launchers." His eyes flicked across the room, as in the corner, one of his automatic launchers that were linked to the ceiling. They were there all night without any rest. They didn't have the second reload. They just kept on firing to bring down anyone that wasn't supposed to be here, anyone trying to kill him. "You have to be quiet though," said Naruto. "Itachi snuck in some hours ago. He should be sleeping in his room now." A prodigy. Itachi might be, but he was still a child. Blue couldn't just hand him a spare key to the house, so he keyed in his fingerprint into the back door, allowing the boy into his house whenever he wants space from his parents. Yuji frowned a bit. "I changed the locks yesterday," said Naruto. It would explain why the spare key that she had did not work, why she had to scale the house, to go through the master bedroom window, to be able to enter the Uchiha clan in the dead of night, to be able to climb up the wall of one of the most infamous Uchihas. That was just a compliment to her skill without getting caught. She sighed. "Want to talk here or downstairs?" He did not respond. "Downstairs it is," she said. "I'll see you downstairs," he said. Before, a small smirk came at her lip. "You got a boner," she said. He simply shrugged, refusing to be ashamed. "It's natural." "Take care of it before you come down," she said, as her eyes narrowed. "Or do you want me to?" "I'm good, thanks," he said. She slowly lifted herself up on purpose as she looked down. He was wearing a sweatpants so she could, she understand now why Uncle called him horsey. She swept herself off of him and marched down the room, her face calm, her breathing under control. She had been his friend through the longest time. Through class, through training, through war, through peace. And in those years, she had seen him naked many times before. And he too had seen her. And she has never seen him aroused. He was definitely a shower and a grower. But that doesn't mean she see him grow before. "Hey," she paused. She turned and caught the mask that he threw towards her as she left the room. Not too long after, Naruto rinsed the sleep out of his eyes as he wiped his face with a towel. As he slowly opened the door, As he looked in to see Itachi sleeping, he was curled up in a ball with a blanket over him. He had gave Itachi full control of the room. He would buy him whatever he want. Price wasn't an issue, as long as he didn't mess up everything. But Itachi chose the cream, color wall, hard furniture, and an organized wardrobe, and a reading table. And he also gave Itachi a weekly allowance since he started the academy some months ago. Itachi saved the money. He couldn't make a bank account because he was too young, and his parents would need to co-sign it. So he saved it the old-fashioned way, in a piggy bank in his uncle's house. As Naruto already had a growing trust fund for the boy. But Itachi was a wise saver as well. Naruto smiles Itachi stir a bit before slowly opening his eyes. Uncle, I hope you don't mind. I don't mind, kid. I'll be downstairs, okay? A small smile came on his face. Okay, don't close the door, said Naruto. As he left the door open a bit. As he made his way downstairs. As he saw Yuji was in his fridge. As she was wearing a lacy black underwear. Full moon tonight, huh? He was pretty sure she was wearing pants when she came upstairs. She looked over her shoulder as she had a stick of dango in her mouth before she returned back to the fridge. Oh, shut up, she said. I'm getting comfortable. You really are, he said as he crossed his arms. Yuji Uzuki might seem like an overly sexual woman, but the reality was, she really wasn't. She was asexual. She had no interest in sex whatsoever. And it made things very difficult for her former boyfriends. All that she did with Naruto was just a joke, as she wouldn't have actually done anything anyway. And it's not like he would let her do it. The both of them were just on a level of comfortable that most best friends didn't share. Even though he could see that she was still a bit anxious, she was trying to return back to that comfortable state that the both of them were in, where they could talk about anything. As she came out of the fridge, as she had a jar of peanut butter in one hand, wheat bread, and a container of bacon, she nudged the door shut with her waist as she made her way and placed the things down on the counter as she looked for a plate and a butter knife. Despite her over attractiveness, Blue was not anyway attractive to her. First, she was like a brother to him when she had looked like a boy back then, but when she started to fill out her clothes and grow up, she became like a sister to him. People used to confuse her for a boy a lot back then, but when puberty hit, let's just say they never confused her again. In his eyes, she was still the brave, rough, overall tomboy that he grew up with. His eyebrow lowered and his mood dipped a bit. She glanced towards him. On our first day of the academy, do you remember the first thing you ever told me? She asked. He scoffed with a familiar smirk. I liked your hat, he said. Flashback. They were seatmates, sitting around the middle of the class. She arrived in class after him, dead tired, with only a few fourth-hand class books, included a beat-up jogger and what looked like a pencil, but it was too cheap for him to fully confirm. She was wearing a worn-out jeans that was one size too large for her, a yellowish shirt underneath, a white jacket, and finally, she had tucked her hair into a baseball cap with a pair of black triangles sewn onto the cap, as they looked like cat ears that she sewed onto the side. He smiled brightly after complimenting her cap, as he had a genuine smile. Thanks, she said, as she dropped her bag next to her feet. She glanced towards him as he had went back to drawing in his small notepad. She wanted to see what he was drawing. He glanced as he saw her looking, before he snapped it closed, as he placed it into his backpack behind him. He replaced it with a book called Intermediate Guide to Water and Air Pressure. As she looked at it, she saw him smirking. As she watched him, as he marked down notes in the book about air pressure and water, she decided to take the initiative. I'm Yuji. What's your name? Naruto. Nice to meet you, he said, as he held out a hand with that same warm smile as she shook his hand. And that was how they first met, in the flashback. From there, the both of them started to get closer. Sometimes she would borrow his notes because she slept through class. Sometimes he shared his lunch with her because he heard her stomach grumble. Each time he would brought out a homemade bento, even making one for her. They hung outside of class sometimes, but it would take more for them to see each other as siblings. They weren't so close yet. The time that they had hung out in the park when they were skipping class was because she saw that he was burned out. But she didn't know from what. She didn't pry. He had looked like he needed a break. So they simply snuck out of class together, get some fresh air, and chill. He didn't pry into her situation at home, and neither did she about him. Not even when, curious enough, sometime he would enter class with a limp. He would play it off as best as he could, but she saw the amount of pain he was in as it flashed across his face most time. Sometimes she would tap his shoulder to ask him for his notes, and he would recoil, like she was about to hit him. She always stared at him and she always wanted to know, but she did not ask as she didn't want to seem like she was prying on his life. In her eyes, he was being a typical boy, trying not to show any weakness. She was too young to understand that he kept his problem to himself, because there was no one that he could turn to that would provide any useful help. Flashback. Before she knew it, a whole month had passed. Yuji was a simple farm girl. She woke up before the sun had rise to feed the chicken and give them water, and to give the horses water in the stable and let the cows out as well. That was her morning duty before her father gave her permission to start to prepare for school. She was also the youngest of 10 children, and all of them were boys. So she was already tough as she was used to it, and hanging out with her brothers a lot. She started to behave like a tomboy. Her father, a farmer within Konoha, had married young. His first wife had given him 3 boys, but she had died from a stomach infection. He married soon after, and his new wife gave birth to 7 children, the last one being Yuji. The second wife was 1/8 Akemichi. Not so close to the clan, but she did have those rosy, red cheeks. She used to work for Yuji's father at the farm, and he asked her to marry him. The man wanted all of his children to be boys. Yuji wasn't an exception. He raised her the same way he raised the other son, to be boys. And they had a very large farm, very large. Out of the boys, the 9 of them, the second oldest was a chonin, and Yuji also wanted to leave the farm life and became a shinobi. There were tutors there to teach him how to read and write. He made the others go to civilian school, as long as they did not disrupt their farm duties. Yuji would ask him, and he finally relented. And the third Hokage also put up the stipend that children, 7 upwards, were to be trained in the Ninja Academy, and their parents would be getting a monthly stipend for allowing their children to take part in active service. The man had seen a reason to do so. After all, half of his farm was razed to the ground when the Kumo and Stone collision attacked. All of Yuji's clothes were hand-me-downs, and even her older brothers treated her like a boy as well. So that is why she had such a strong head going. But she really didn't like it when people confused her for a boy too. Well, she didn't help by acting like a boy, speaking like one, and wearing boy clothes, and having a boy haircut. A teacher came to the class to see if any of the students were specials in certain area, and she got placed with a katana after seeing her skills. And it was then that Naruto was called. Everyone was saying that he was a genius, something that he has never seen when it comes to long range, as he was called out to face off against a 12-year-old, 4th year, that was from the Nara clan. She had seen that thing that he was drawing in his notebook, that thing that he had built. They stood some yards apart, the older student standing. As he looked over at Naruto, Naruto was leaning back a bit. His red gloves were on his hands, as his hands were in his pockets, as there was a backpack under his back. The Nara was wearing simple black, with his clan symbol on his back. A red-haired girl on the sideline shouted, "You got this, Blue!" as the classmates chipped in, rearing their support for the young inventor. As he looked at the older boy, it wasn't a free day, but everyone could come to watch, as all the teachers are out there to see the fight. It was the third Hokage way of bragging. Another genius had come up during his time, as he made his way to the center, before walking over to Naruto, as he lowered himself to whisper something to him. "Are you certain you don't want to use those smaller launchers?" he asked. The boy looked up towards the third. "They're jam. I can't use them," he said. "Ah, well," said Sir Toby as he leaned back up. "I was hoping that he would show them off to get everyone curious." Blue simply shrugged. "What about the bigger one? The one that used to take out those Kumo ninjas? It is impractical in close combat. I can't use it." He closed his eyes with a sigh. "That's too bad. I was looking forward to see you use your launchers." "The little boy that's sitting next to you, call it what again?" asked Sir Toby. "Ah, crystalline. I feel it's a fitting name, given yours." He looked around, before his eyes spotted someone, a blonde, watching as well. "Minato is here, you know." Blue stiffened hearing Minato's name. as his hand clenched in his pocket. "You're trying to rile me up," he said, as his eyes shifted into a two-totem Sharingan. "Stop it." "Pardon me then," as Hiruzen leaned back down. "I know that you win this little showing, but just make it, you know, interesting." "You show a lot of promise, Blue," Hiruzen said. "More than Jiraiya prodigy. Honestly, I never expected Orochimaru to vouch for you. You must have really impressed her that day." He was referring to when Blue had taken down those Kumo ninjas that were trying to kidnap Kushina Uzumaki. "So regardless of today's result, whether you choose to show everyone why I hold you in such high regards, I really want you to head to the front lines by next year." As Naruto glanced around, as he saw Minato, he turned back to the Hokage's eyes, returning back to normal. "You, my dear boy, are an asset amongst assets. One thing I regret to do, that I wasn't able to change your father's opinion of you." "Lord Hokage," Blue said. "The match." "Oh, yes," said Hiruzen, as he patted Blue's shoulder before moving off, as everyone was eager to see what was going to happen. But none of them expected Academy students to know high-level jutsu. Shikaku Nara, the boy that was standing across from him, did not look him in the eyes. His teacher had warned him that the boy was a Uchiha. The 12-year-old Nara had no idea why the Hokage was making such a spectacle out of this match. But he had to obey and give it his all. Troublesome. As he settled down into a fighting stance, the teacher came between them and the older man waited for Blue to enter into a fighting stance as well. Blue removed his hands from his pockets and his knees bent as well, a bit deeper than Shikaku's. Shikaku narrowed his eyes at Blue's style. This wasn't the famous Uchiha fighting style. It wasn't heavy or powerful. It gave move for the legs to move freely and swiftly. It could have been mistaken for the Jayugen if he didn't have a fist guarding his stomach area. This is a hand-to-hand match. Ninjutsu and Genjutsu are permitted. Weapons and smoke bombs are permitted, but explosives are not. The match will end when one is incapacitated by the other or unable to move anymore. The teacher said, "Lord Hokage is watching. Make sure you impress him. Are the both of you ready?" The both of them nodded. "Alright. Begin!" The teacher moved back. Shikaku raced forward, going through hand signs, while Blue stepped back 2 steps as he flicked his wrist. A pistol of shuriken appeared between his fingers in a poof. "Hiding art. Shadow imitation technique," said Shikaku, as he released his shadow to go after Blue. Blue tossed 2 kunais from his right, tossed from his left, and he did the same thing seconds later after with his 2 hands. Shikaku dodged the 2 first one, but he was surprised when the second hit the first one. As they curved and clashed against each other, they sparked. He had to close his eyes. His danger senses flare. He blinked to get the black spots out of his vision. He could only see Blue reach into his backpack with his left hand over his shoulder, while his right hand went under the backpack. Both hands came back, as the watchers gasped when he saw Naruto nudge 3 arrows onto a rough-looking bow. It looked like it was sawed off of a tree, and it was sanded and smoothed out. They weren't sure what the elastic material was, but he pulled it back and it went way back. Shikaku threw up his arms as Blue fired the smoke bomb at each of the arrow end, blew upon Shikaku as he coughed as the smoke entered his lungs. His feet was swept out from underneath him as he fell, as a blade pressed up against his throat. His eyes opened, and they clashed against the swirling blue orbs of the Uchiha. Said Naruto. "I give up," said Shikaku, as he looked up at Blue with surprise and shock. 52 seconds. That was how long the match was. Everyone was completely stunned into silence. Yuji felt like she should seriously reevaluate her casual friendship with her seatmate. A month into school, not only did she find out the person that she was sitting next to was a Uchiha, but she and everyone else realized he was a genius. The rest of the day she attended class, as she was unable to even say anything about what happened in the training ground. Still completely amazed. The same could be said about the class. Of course, they knew that Blue was smart. He got good scores in pop quiz and everything. He wasn't exactly rowdy, but he did goof around the other boys. But he always came to class on time. He always had his things, always prepared and always ready. But the next day, he did not come to class. Yuji was worried, as he had forgot to take back his bento box. He had given it to her after he defeated Shikaku Nara, saying that he wasn't hungry. She was so worried she did not nap in class. She was wide awake as she took down all of the notes so that she could share them with him. 4 days passed and he still hadn't come into class. Yuji asked if she could take the notes to him. The teacher gave her the go-ahead, but the thing was the Uchiha clan did not allow outsiders into their clan that willingly. The gatekeepers did not let her in, as she wanted to give the notes and the bento box to him herself. She didn't know why. She later found him that day at the park. He was fishing. He had a black eye and a bruised cheek. She didn't say anything, she just sat down close to him and drew her knees close to her chest. The both of them said nothing as she saw how swollen his face was. As the sun had set, she ended up looking at him as she blushed. He laughed. In the flashback, Yuji put down her sandwich on the plate. Naruto, I'm sorry, she said. Her eyes were filled with regret and pain. She tried to open her mouth to say more, but it wasn't coming out. As she clenched her fist at her side, she forced it out. What I did was terrible. Worse still, I didn't tell you. I thought what I was doing was protecting you. I really did. That's all I want to do, protect you. But along the way I seemed to trick myself to thinking that protecting you from yourself is better than protecting you from the world. I'm really sorry, Naruto, she said. Her name was the very first on the Hokage order that Orochimaru had leaked to him, meaning that Minato knew of their close relationship and capitalized on it. This is my worst screw-up, Naruto, she said. I want to understand you, Jiu. Why would you ever think I'm a threat? His head tilted to the side. Is it because of Zieki? No. It's not that. It's not because of Zieki, she said. But then, you saved me, Naruto, she said. Then why, he asked. I did not think that you're a threat, she said. I never had, and I never will. As she looked down, it's that, you've always had my back, since we were kids. You've always carried me, she said, reliable and dependable. That's who you are, and that's what I want to be as well. But I messed it up. The only things I can really do are feed chickens and swing my sword. I thought this was the way I could have your back. As she scratched the back of her head in a nervous tick that she always did. Yeah, you sure did, he said. I swear, Naruto, she said. On my blade, on my family, on my soul. I never wanted this to happen. I thought I was doing the right thing. You weren't, he said. Hiding that secret from me, suspecting I was a danger to the village and myself, and rallying on Minato's side. Him, of all people. He had to calm himself. The mere thought of Minato boiled his blood. You let that yellow rat influence you against me, of all person. What do you want me to do, she said. She bowed her head. How do I make this right? Please tell me, she said. Start by telling me what he told you, said Naruto. And she did. The words poured out of her lips like a waterfall. He noticed how she didn't blame Minato of manipulating her. She put the blame on herself. A high jonin, there was even an envoy to boot. Blue could respect that at least. It was her fault for believing Minato over her own best friend. She told him how Minato had uncovered that Orochimaru of the Sannin was his biological mother, and he speculated that Naruto was involved to make her a safe escape from Konoha, and also keeping her covered as she scoured the globe without being caught. Minato had convinced her that that fire self of Naruto could appear if someone even mistakenly chipped him on the shoulder, as he used the point of Naruto breaking Fukaku's arm to show her that his anger was not in check. He informed her that he had cash all over, that he had billions of Ryu in undetected accounts. She responded that she already knew that her friend was filthy rich, but she did not divulge the information that he had bank accounts in different nations. He said that Naruto was going against orders to not hand over the launchers so they could keep Konoha well protected. Unpatriotic. That was what Minato called Blue. Lastly, Minato told her that Naruto was attending weekly therapy sessions. He was having flashbacks of wartime, post-traumatic, stressful, distort, touchy states that could make him snap at any moment if everyone was not careful. He was a danger to himself and a danger to everyone else. And he kept on talking about crystalline. He really wanted crystalline. Minato really wanted the blueprints no matter what. She could understand Naruto not telling her about therapy. There were no secrets between them, but that didn't mean they couldn't keep it either. She had a few things here and there that she didn't share with her best friend. And this was the same woman that talked to him about her time of the month. If therapy helped him overcome the times of war, then she was happy that he was getting help for the terrible flashbacks. Another thing, Minato told her that this was a double, extra secret. So if he ever found out that she told Blue this, she would be killed on the spot. Throughout all of this, he remained quiet as he looked at her. Is this everything, he said. It's everything, she said. Cross my heart. Hope to die. Next question, then he says he walked past her as he continued to spread the peanut butter onto the bread. As he made 3 sandwiches and handed one to her, but she did not eat. She was one night at Miche. She could eat, but she did not really gain weight. So it was quite curious to see her not eating. She was clearly distressed now. When did he tell you? Was it all at once? Naruto asked. 2 years ago, and yes. Although, he did talk to me personally. When he kept a small party in Ichiraku Ramen 2 years ago. When you were out of the village to track down that Jashness that had 8. The hot water daimyo's wife. What was his name again? As Naruto tapped his chin. Hidan, he said. Yes, Hidan, said Yuji with a nod. Blue remembered that mission. Hot water was an ally of Konoha, and they were having a problem with the cult of Jushin, the goddess of slaughter, as one of them had murdered the daimyo wife. As the daimyos and the Jashness, they were trying to come to some peace, but Hidan had snapped and bit into the woman's neck. It was like he was literally eating her. They were afraid of him. They did not send out anyone after him, knowing that they would come back dead when he fled. That was where Naruto came in. The specifics of the mission was, they wanted Hidan gagged and bound. His chakra suppressed but alive. That was a bit redundant, seeing that Hidan was immortal. It took Blue 3 months, getting contacts, and asking them. He found him in a small camp in Stone Country, terrorizing the people in there. He had filled his launcher with different senmons, with a liquid that could tighten the muscles. He fired 3 of them into Hidan's eye socket, and 3 of them into his chest. Blinking out of that memory, he looked back towards Yuji. He closed down the entire stand and he had paid for everyone's ramen. As Naruto could think about that easily, he gave them one of his free winning smiles, telling them that everything was on him tonight. Then he told us everything I just told you. As they had sat around the table, Minato tried to look like he was concerned, that he felt sympathy for Blue, and he was concerned about his well-being, when in fact he didn't really give a damn. He was just trying to turn everyone against Blue. There had been a council meeting, an hour before. We went to Ichiraku Ramen, so the guys in the council already knew what was going on. The rest of us, Kakashi, Tenzo, Kurnai, Uncle, as she remembered the wife of the counselors that were there. Ayo, Yamanaka, Shio, Abermi, Kin, Hayuga, Asuma, Ero, Akemichi, Yana, Haruno, Genma, Hayate, Ibiki. As she tried to remember. Don't sweat the details, said Naruto. Well, for all our friends that was not in the council, it was fresh news to us. Inoichi refused to give us any reports about your medical sessions. But he did say that you weren't a bad guy. You had your demons, but you were not a threat at all. Naruto mumbled. Good old Inoichi. Minato told to keep an eye on you, because he can't always keep watching you. He said that when you snap, he would be there in a flash. I see, said Naruto. Naruto, she said quietly. There was one thing she couldn't wrap her head around. Why? Is Minato doing this to you, she asked. You said to yourself he's fixated on crystalline. Probably think you'll make him famous or something. There has to be more to it, she said. Well, the Minato I know is different from the Minato that you know. The one I know is childish, self-centered, envious, and proud. That doesn't sound right. It's a matter of perspective, said Blue. This is gonna sound crazy. Try me, she said. But her eyes were not on him. As Naruto lifted up her chin and pulled back her cat hoodie. If you don't think I'm crazy, look me in the eyes and say to my face, he said. She was about to open her mouth, but that look in his eyes, that stormy gaze of his, told her to be absolutely certain before she said a single word. After this, there was no going back. A repeat of what she had done and she would be dead to him. She nodded firmly. I don't think that you're crazy, Naruto, she said. Not the way the Hokage say that you're crazy. Naruto nodded. Minato sees everything as a competition. He continued from where he had left off. He cannot grasp the thought to think someone in the village can do something that he doesn't even have a single knowledge about, and that the person is being recognized for that knowledge. He will do anything to absorb the person's knowledge into his own, somehow, some way. From what I can guess, the Class A threat order on my head is to make the people that I come to know think that I'm crazy, and to set aside my shinobi career, to put me as unstable. To make the public see that I refuse to hand over crystalline to him, trying to confine me in a corner without anyone. He's trying to make me snap, so I do something, to reinforce their gaping suspicion, to make it even worse. When I do, he will leak this out to the rest of the continent, to the companies I invest in, making them know that a crazy person had invested and had more shares in their company than them, And because I'm not a shinobi anymore and I can't leave this village, then I won't be able to fix the damage done to my reputation. He bit into the sandwich that he was holding onto, before he walked towards the fridge as he got goat milk. He served 2 glasses, one for him and one for her, as she was still shocked. No friends, no allies, no money, no prestige left to my name. Minato would think I would run mad and kill whatever's in my path, until he arrived in a flash. Or I could give up, and hand over my schematics to every one of my weapons, and he could bail me onto some money. And then he would have real power over me, because he's my benefactor, and he's my savior. There's also the chance that I now found out about the Class A order. He will want to dispose of me sooner or later, probably within a week. Could be tomorrow, who knows. Yuji could only blubber in surprise. Crazy, right? You know, sometimes I forget how smart you are, she said. She chuckled wistfully. That was scary. He simply laughed a bit. Is that really what he's up to, she said. Sure looked like it, he said. What Minato didn't know was that Blue wasn't disconnected from the outside world, like he thought. If he tried to send out any letters, the post office would block them off, and firstly hand them over to Minato, probably an order, so he could read them and find out what Naruto was doing. The phones around the village was being listening on. That wasn't out of the ordinary for any village. He only used his phone to call friends outside the village anyway. No vital intel was exchanged, but Naruto had a way to send message, quick and undetectable. Sneak summons. He was his mother's son, of course he had the sneak summoning contract, as Naruto wanted to get all his affairs in order, and it had a trust fund. And there was also the village that his mother had created, the Hidden Zone, where he had sent over the refugees from the Hidden Stone. But his mother told him that he didn't have to worry, she could handle that. But he didn't want to leave everything on her shoulders, so he still wanted to send money over there as well. And his accountant split the money and send them by different name, so no one would ever know a thing where the money was coming from. His accountants were professional after all. What are you gonna do now, said Yuji, as she snatched a last peanut butter sandwich before he could grab onto it. As she bit into it, Blue's eyebrow twitched. You're gonna put on some pants. Itachi could be down at any... Blue. Itachi rubbed his eyes as he was coming down the stairs. He saw light coming from the kitchen. Blue? Uncle Blue, the man said, as he went around Yuji standing at the kitchen door. How many times do I have to tell you, said Blue. Uncle Blue, Itachi said. Is there someone here? I heard voices. Yuji was here, hearing her name. Her head peeped out of the kitchen. How's it going, she said. Hello, Itachi greeted. He came downstairs. He rubbed his eyes once more, shaking off the last bits of sleep. She was now wearing some black shorts, with black socks on her feet as well. I hope we didn't wake you up, she said. No, I was thirsty, said Itachi, as he made his way towards the sink, as he found a glass cup, and poured some water and took 2 sips, before he poured the rest back in the sink. I can't sleep, uncle, he said. How about we watch a movie? Prodigy or not, Itachi was still a child to Naruto. He held out his hand as Itachi took it as he guided him towards the parlor. Itachi hopped onto a chair while Blue turned towards the television. So, what do you want to watch? He asked. Is there anything from the sun? Not that I heard of. Movies and TV show from the Hidden Sun was few, but they were excellently made from what he heard. There's a new superhero movie from Hidden, Saltwater. Yuji felt out of place as she stood there. But Naruto turned his head towards her. You know any good movies, Yuji? He asked. Well, there is one running on the Snow X movie channel. I heard it's a horror movie, but I haven't watched it yet. That one please, said Itachi, as Yuji would sit down as well. 2 hours later, Itachi was fast asleep. Yuji couldn't believe the move was that scary. As Blue had to admit, he got a few jumps out of him as well. It was now 1:11 a.m. as Naruto brought Itachi upstairs and put him back in his bed. As Yuji went up and slept in Naruto's bed. As Naruto was downstairs, watching TV, while thinking about his next step, he went and checked on Itachi. Then he went and checked on Yuji, as the both of them were sleeping peacefully. The third bedroom in his house was remade into his study. As he entered his study and flicked on the lights, as he sat down, as he pulled out some paper and pen, some brushes, some ink, as he started to construct his final orders in case that he would die. An hour later, Snakes left his house as he slipped into the night. Because you're an asset, that doesn't mean that you're not disposable. Minato had told him that when he had entered in his office. Unfortunately, Blue was right when he said that Hokage would try to dispose of him in a week. At the same time, unknown location, I have more than enough sacrifices, Danzo said. The success of this plan rely on your end of the deal. Minato exhaled. I feel like I'm the one that is putting my neck out. You forget, if this is discovered, then all blame goes to me. said Danzo as he tapped his stick on the ground. The trees around the forest rustled. As Minato narrowed his eyes, he heard footsteps all around, shadows, surrounding everything. It was all these roots. For the good of Konoha, Minato said. He was, well, unimpressed by Danzo's small display of authority with his roots. I would have shot you down if I didn't have use for you, Danzo. Danzo's face did not change at the man hard remarked, but inside he glared at the boy. It was only a matter of time. Minato straightened his Hayori as the roots flicker away. Anyway, no one will find out anything. There won't be any outside witnesses, as you say. The deal is, you get his eyes and the chakra left in his body, and I get his weapons, crystalline and all. Danzo didn't really care how Minato was going to get his hands on those inventions. If Naruto doesn't have them on him, then I can get Fukaku to let me inside of the Uchiha clan compound and raid Naruto's house. I'm sure I can negate any security seals he had on his place. Danzo blinked once. And what shall we use to bait the blue one out? This will fail from the start if we don't have an important bait to lead him out there. The hand holding onto his walking stick tightened. What about the boy? You mean Itachi? Yes, the blue one hold him in high regard. My spies tell me that much. Or do you prefer we use your wife, said Danzo. Then we would have to kill them after, said Minato. No outside witnesses, remember? There's a chance the Kyuubi might be released. And I'm sure Itachi's mother would not be pleased about that. This has nothing to do with the boy's mother. What about the Uzuki girl? Danzo said. My report said that she was the reason why the blue one lost himself. Back in Zeke, we don't need a hostage, said Minato as he smiled. Relax, old man. I already told you the plan. And it will work. Trust me, said Minato. Are you certain that seal will contain him, said Danzo. Let him disrespect slide. Well, the man was Hokage. You give him too much credit, Danzo. He is not that powerful, said Minato. Are you telling that to me? Or to yourself, Danzo asked. He walked past Danzo. Today, 8 a.m. When Minato was gone, Danzo nodded once as his shinobis appeared. Yes, the blue one will die today. Time skip, he hadn't slept, not even a little. It was constant correspondence with him and his accountants, his network. As he found his groove and let her flow easy and faster, his contact and connections were panicking, not out of fear of being discovered, but because their benefactor said that his life was in danger. He did not say who, but he did say that he needed to stay irresolute, and that Itachi will be the one they will be reporting to once the boy turned 15. It was regrettable that he woke them up in the dead of the night, only to give them this regrettable news, as he kept on sending out his letter to keep everything flowing smoothly, all in the purpose of increased knowledge savings. That wouldn't be a problem, as they pledged to do what they were doing, until it's time come for the accountants to open up to his nephews. Though on Itachi to a birthday, the Iron Accountant will come to Konoha to inform Itachi about his trust fund that his uncle had left them billions. They weren't exactly pleased to hear that their blue-eyed client had projected his own death. But they were professionals. He had given them a job and paid them handsomely, and they were going to see it done. Blue also gave him the freedom to hire as many must that he want to get to Konoha safely. He emptied all the blueprints, the sketch, everything to the Iron Accountant, and received a letter moments later that everything was delivered safely. It wasn't that he did not trust the fire accountant, it was that Minato could dip into his bank and try to bring up some sketchy claim. Iron was neutral, so he couldn't do anything there, as he wrote that the funds going towards Hidden Sound should be doubled. Not in a way for his mother to notice. Orochimaru didn't want her son money, as she had her own, but still, he didn't want to leave nothing to her. Same for Yuji. She didn't like when he gave her money, and she made that show by paying for their meals every time they went out to eat. But he would have to do it in a way, move more creative so she wouldn't find out. Until it was time, his accountants tell him that everything was going smoothly. He trusts them, he has been a billionaire for years now. And no one outside of Kushina, Yuji, and Minato found out. But once, if they heard that Naruto was dead, Minato would go straight towards the bank of the Fire Country, and he would try to twist the man's arm to find out about Naruto bank statements. But Naruto already planned for that, as he told the man to transfer everything to the Iron account. He had someone working in the Fire Bank as well, and someone working through the passport security that could get him and his family into Iron Country without any hassle at all. After all, Naruto knew the Yakuza in Iron Country, and she would protect the man and his family. Minato wouldn't dare try something with them until the heat died down. She owned Naruto. Samurai or not, they were always good on their word. The man didn't have any quarrel against that. as his children were in a school in the Iron Country, and it would be good to connect their family once again. He wanted to spread these letters out in about 7 days, but he had to do everything tonight. And there was a big drawback of that. Naruto's eyesight was diminishing. Using the projection of his Sharingan had cut it shortly, as he used it twice, one to test it and the other one backing Zyeki. It wasn't a problem when he used his scope though, as the lens on crystalline was very subtle to make his vision clear. But sometimes things were rather blurry around him. Yuji knew that he was half blind, but no one else knew. He hid it because he wasn't a fan of being pitted, but he wasn't using his jutsus, and he wasn't using his evolved eyes on a daily basis. So for right now everything was fine. But his Mangekyo Sharingan made everything see more clearly, as his eyes now showed the Mangekyo as he turned towards the map on his wall of the elemental nation. He couldn't help it as he smiled. Using thumbtacks, he marked down his contacts and his connections. There were dozens, maybe even hundreds of them, as he wrote down a scroll about the hidden sound that Itachi could go there to his birth mother and get any answers that he wanted. He wrote a few other things as well. When he was done with that, the last thing he wrote was that his friend, Yuji, a very powerful kunoichi, and she showed her intentions of protecting him and Itachi if he so much as asked her to do it. Like his other friends outside, she wasn't pleased here that he was preparing for his death. He was in his 20s, he was in the prime of his life, as she was saving up to get her own place in hidden salt water. And she wanted him to be there, at least, to see her. It had taken a few dozen letters to placate her, telling her that he needed her strength to look out for his nephew alongside his mother. At the moment, Kumo citizens could enter Konoha, although it would take her a while to get her papers so that she could enter Konoha from the Kumo migrating office. Unfortunately, he didn't have anyone there that can make it quicker, so she would have to do that on her own, as he needed her help watching Itachi's back. It was unfortunate that Blue friends in Konoha neglected to remember the sacrifice that he made for them, and the things that he could do. He rolled the scroll and sealed it away, put it somewhere Itachi could find it, under his desk, as he had known that Itachi sneaked into his study every time, taking up one of his advanced book and trying to read it, but failing every time. After a while, he would get bored and just picked her on his uncle's desk. He took the map off the wall and crumpled it up as he placed it in the bin before tapping it. It started to burn inside, as his blue orbs looked down at it. When he was sure that there was nothing but ashes left, he left the room and locked it, knowing that Itachi would return after school was over. Oh yeah, school. As he made his way towards Itachi's room. Get up, he said. Time for school. But guys, be in tips right here. If you want some next parts to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm off for now. See you guys soon. Peace.